you're on youth national teams, and then it's time for college. You said
Yes.
you always wanted to go to that school in Chapel
I
Hill.
did. Don't dislike my school. We'll be friendly. I always wanted to go there.
Every little girl in the country wanted to play soccer at UNC because Anson had built something so special there and so extraordinary.
Yes.
And I really want to hear about that experience. And I learned to coach in that area of the country, and Anson was a giant. He was just a larger than life figure in women's soccer. He still is, but then especially. And my first team that I coached, I was coaching in graduate school, and I coached a youth team. And his daughter Natalie was on the team. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was
what
a
small world.
it was a U12 team.
Okay.
And I look at the roster. This is like my first club team.
You see Natalie Dorrance and you're like, what is happening?
Sure enough, he's on the sideline for my very first.
That's amazing.
But that was the culture over there.
Right.
And so I think a lot of us that learned to coach and that really look to him, especially in coaching women. And the competitiveness, the competitiveness that he, in a lot of ways, manufactured. Can you tell me about what that culture was like?
Yeah, I would love to. I love speaking about my college experience. It was so formative for me. And I'll rewind back just a little bit before addressing that exact question. When I was deciding where I was going to go to school, because I had other options that I was looking at with North Carolina, as much as I knew in my heart that's where I wanted to go, I went through the process. I really looked at everything. And a big determining factor of why I went there was because I felt it wasn't a guarantee of playing time. He actually told me, I don't know if you'll even play to your sophomore year. I believe in you, but you've got to develop. I mean, he was so brutally honest. You were around him, so you know this. I knew that if I went to other places, I could have more accolades potentially. And hey, you're going to come in and start right away, and we're going to build this team around you, and X, Y, Z. And it was all great, and they were wonderful programs. I felt like North Carolina was going to get the best out of me, full stop, no matter what that looked like, because of the culture that he put into his program and the competitiveness piece. I love benchmarks. I love having goals. I love competing. And I felt that he was going to get the best out of me. And I was 100% right. And I knew that if I had goals beyond college, that I needed to go somewhere where someone believed in me enough that I had an opportunity, but that I was going to have to work. And so I just felt like it was the perfect fit for me and what I needed in my life at that time, because every part of your career has different seasons and different things that you need. So that was a big part of why I chose to go to North Carolina, was I felt I would be maximized there. And that speaks to his competitive cauldron that he instituted, where we were ranked on everything. We had to report our scores into the season. You got all your rankings and
So
everything.
like at practice every day, score was kept every day.
Every day. We would run over to the managers. We would give them our scores. So Kacey, you're 2-1 at the end of that drill. Next one, I'm 0-3. The next one, I'm 5-0. Or if it was a technical thing, we would judge our technique we'd have like a grading scale. So everything was kept every day. Fitness tests, how many we made out of the fitness tests. And at the end of the fall season, and then again at the end of the spring season, we would get a paper, and it would be 1 to 30, 35, however many players, and you had your overall rank. And then across here was every drill you'd ever done, and then your rank in each of those drills. And you knew that was coming. That is a huge motivator to me, because I'm super competitive like that. If it's on paper, that embarrasses me if I'm not in the top. And so it was a huge motivator for me. So we were more nervous in practice sometimes than we were when we would go to a game on the weekend, because there was such a culture of achievement and competitiveness within our team that once we got to the games, we were all on the same page, and we weren't worried about competing because we did it every day. So that was a really nice piece of what he did.
Yeah. I see young coaches will do you look at a practice and the intensity level isn't very high. And I'll look at what they're doing, and they're doing something where there's no score.
Right.
And I say, try keeping score on this game. And
huge.
the level always increases.
Always.
Right?
Always.
And if you stop keeping score, the level.
I took a huge part of that into my own coaching career, to your point.
Yeah.
And now, did I do it every day No, but you can create your own version of that. And I would have players run into me, finally, what's the score? They didn't know. Okay, that's interesting. Back out. Let's do it again. Next time they come in, okay, win-loss ties and points. How many did you have on the day? Like, I'd pick certain days to do it. Well, one, they'd learn how a table works. If you want to watch English Premier League or MLS or NWSL, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie. So education, but also increases the competitiveness.
Yeah. I'm assuming not everybody thrived in that environment.
It's pretty cutthroat.
It's self-selecting?
It's not for everyone's personality, but it was a separator. And I think what ultimately Anson knew was he had figured out over the years what made teams successful. And this, more often than not, made the collective successful. But there were players that weren't reached in that type of environment, and that didn't suit them. But he never lied that was the environment that he had. So a lot of people think they would do well. But every day dealing with looking in the mirror, like every day, I'm good enough, I'm not good enough in this moment, it's hard. It can be extremely difficult. And some people do really well in that and some don't. So that was always interesting to see each year.
There's moments in your life, like you have these like photographic memories of certain parts of your life where you really learn something about life or yourself. And I had one of those moments when I was coaching at Duke, and the very first time we walked onto Carolina's field as an away team. And I will never forget the feeling that I had. I mean, Duke's a pretty good team.
Yes.
We had some pretty talented,
yes, of course,
pretty talented players. And I remember seeing the Carolina girls walk onto that field. And this was Cindy Parlow's.
Yep.
This was Cindy Parlow's
She's an
team.
imposing figure.
She's an imposing figure. The way they walked onto that field, I knew we weren't going to win. Because it wasn't an arrogant strut, but it was full of such confidence that I had never seen in female athletes. And it made such a mark on me. And I describe it as an edge. It's just a feeling. There is an edge there that they had that our players didn't have. And I've never forgotten that. And it struck me because you see a lot of false confidence on the men's side, right? But you don't see that, you rarely see that swagger, that kind of edge in women's sports. And you guys had it. And I've often wondered, is that a natural thing that players that are attracted to that kind of environment, is it self-selecting, or does the environment create that kind of edge?
I think it's probably specific to each player. I don't believe it's self-selecting. I think that the environment creates it because I was not naturally that way. I was naturally goal-oriented, and I was competitive. Now, when we say to the normal or average competitive person, I am extremely competitive. But when I talk about that, where I thought that North Carolina would maximize me and get the most out of me, I didn't like to make mistakes. Growing up, I never wanted to lose the ball. I saw that as a failure rather than look at you trying to take on, like you've made that defender uncomfortable. I saw that as a failure. I'd rather turn back, keep it, because I was very thoughtful as a player. And so I feel his environment takes you out of your comfort zone. At least it did for me. So I needed, if I was half of a player when I entered Carolina, I felt like he was honing the other half of me, which was to make mistakes, to get out of my comfort zone. I always had the competitiveness. I always had the desire to win, but I didn't know how to really compete at that level. I was almost too humble at times. You said it's not an arrogance, but it is an edge. And I think when you go through an environment like that, where you have someone that believes in you so much, because I knew Anson believed in me, but he believed in me so much that he wasn't going to lie to me. He was brutally honest. Hey, if you don't tackle, you're not going to see the field here. That's one thing he said to me, because I was fit and I would intercept passes, but I would never throw in a tackle. He's like, you'll never play here. And I was like, okay. So I just started throwing my body everywhere, and I was terrible at it. But
all 5'2" of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, my club coaches never really made me do that because I was so good on the attacking side. So everyone else behind Kacey just do that and give her the ball was a little bit. And it wasn't that I didn't work hard. I always worked hard. I just was not a combative defensive player. I would just want to read the ball and intercept and not have to get into the tussle. So I think Anson's environment, to answer your first question, yes, are some players naturally that way? He'll talk about April Heinrichs till he's blue in the face about how like she is the epitome of like was already that way, got to Carolina and it just enhanced her even more. But I think that there's players like me that I had it in me, but if I hadn't gone there, I don't know if it would have unlocked a side of my game that helped me go to the next level. That's why I say it was so formative. I still to this day, when I see Anson, I look up to Anson, even though, you know, it's more of now we're friends / colleagues / I don't know, old coach. But I still have that feeling of he really added to, you know, to me as a human being and as a player.
And you describe that as competitiveness, just that.
Yes, and also performing under pressure. I truly believe peer pressure as far as giving a speech in front of people versus giving a speech in front of 30 of my colleagues, more daunting to me to do it in front of my colleagues. And I think a lot of people might feel that way because you care. They think to a degree. I think that type of pressure of performing in front of your teammates, being accountable in front of your teammates became cool to be a high achieving person in that environment. It was good to be that way. It wasn't cool to say, I don't really care. That wasn't the environment. And so it just brings something out in you that you become mentally tough. You are a little edgy and you want to win. I mean, I remember my roommate yelling at me and me yelling at her because we disagreed on whether the ball went out of bounds in a 5v2. That's not necessarily normal, but we were so competitive and it mattered. Everything mattered.
That is the edge that I saw firsthand.
Right.
That mentality. And so I don't want to make generalizations about women's players and women and men because everybody is unique and there's
Absolutely.
a spectrum. But as I've coached boys and girls, it's almost impossible not to acknowledge some differences. And I've often wondered about those young players with that edge, with that competitiveness. On the boys' side, those guys become the team captain. That's where all the boys want to follow that guy, that alpha personality, right? They're the leader of the pack. That guy doesn't have a hard time making friends.
No.
Everybody, all the guys want to be his friend. What I've observed on the women's side is different. And oftentimes that girl with that competitive edge, it's harder socially. And I see adults kind of like, whether it's parents on the sideline, referees, other coaches, I see this repeatedly coaching the women's game, that their wings are constantly being clipped. Can you talk about that dynamic? Is that something that...
I think there's an innate sense of social belonging with women, and I do think men have it too. Like you said, you can't make these universal statements or something that's across the board for everyone, but I do think that we see throughout youth sports, throughout college sports, and it gets a little bit easier as you get older because people are more self-assured, but sometimes if you are one of those female leaders, you need the protection of your coach. You need the protection of other leaders with you to where it becomes, that's okay that she's that way. Like what are the good qualities about that? Because when you see it as a youth player, they don't quite know how to lead yet, those types of players. They're just ultra aggressive or ultra competitive, and they're abrasive maybe a little bit at times because they don't know how to lead at 14 or at 15 or at 16. And there's so much social pressure and dynamics, I think, at the youth age that's really hard, that I've noticed when I've seen someone like that, and we don't always get it right as coaches, you know, but there's been times where I can see someone snicker about something and I'll try to use it as a moment to support that person because those other players are looking for guidance of like, is that okay to be like that? So I think that becomes easier in college, and there's definitely players that were way more competitive than me and were more of that different type of take on things. But I think what Anson did so well is that he made that a positive thing. And look, maybe they weren't hanging out with everyone outside of, soccer practice, and we all had our college lives. I liked all of my teammates, but I wasn't close with all of them. They weren't all close with me. We weren't that like team that everyone loves each other and that's why we won. Like, we respected each other on the field. We were friends. We weren't toxic, but we had a job and we got it done. And we were really good at that. And we were on the same page with that. But I had other years where I had closer teams.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite as good on the field, which I think that's rare for women's teams. A lot of times it is the teams that are really, really close.
Yeah.
So I think he just created a very different type of environment while he recognized that women are different in a lot of ways than coaching men, because he also coached men.
Yep. That's right. He started out there.
But he said, but these are elite athletes, full stop. Not just elite women athletes. They're elite athletes.
Right.
They still want to be pushed. They still want to compete and all of that. So he didn't treat us differently in that way, which I always appreciated.
Yeah. I remember him talking about Mia Hamm, and he said Mia almost needed permission to compete. And he talked about it in terms of, you have to protect your geniuses.
I could see him saying that. Yeah.
And it sounds like that's the kind of culture that it's tricky as a coach, man. It's art, right?
It's picking your battles. I remember, and I mentioned it earlier with my youth coaches, but I really got a lesson in this with Anson. My senior year, my class was very A-type personalities. Like, we were like, what are the rules? Let's live by the rule. Like, that was our personality. That's not really Anson's personality. He's very much like, show up and do your job. And it was, I don't care, but if it impacts what we do here, we have a problem.
And there was a scorecard.
And exactly. So it's going to show anyways. But my senior year, we had a lot of, our leadership was very by the book type of personalities, and the year below us was not. They were a much more free-spirited group and come into training and maybe the wrong shirt, and like, we were annoyed by that as the senior, And I remember he had this long leash with one of our juniors, and we just couldn't understand it. We were like, but you have to pass fitness, you have to do this, you have to, like, we had standards, but he had this long rope with her. And we called him in one time and we were like, we don't get this. And he said, guys, I understand, but she's not you. Like, I have to lead in a different way with her, and I have to pick my battles with her. And is her not wearing the right color one day, is that affecting the team? And we were like, no. But is she passing fitness? Is she doing everything she needs to do on the field? Does she help us win? And we were like, yeah. And he was like, okay, she's just different than you guys. But she's a teammate. And we were so like by the book and so black and white. I remember that so vividly because it was the first time I started thinking, okay, everyone needs a little something different, like parenting. Your kids are different. And that, how do you set standards but still reach everyone? And so you can be a very strong collective. And that's what you talk about, the art of coaching. It's so incredibly difficult because there's no answer to that. I don't think. You just do the best you can with people management and figuring it out. And Anson would say, like, he didn't get it right every time, but that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah. What a gift to be able to be in that kind of culture in your early 20s. You think about, like, why do we play this sport? Like, what is the value of youth sports?
Right.
You think, like, what an opportunity that was for you outside of soccer, just learning leadership.
Oh, it's so valuable. I feel incredibly lucky. And the longer I live, the more I realize how impactful that time of my life was. Because I'm definitely one of those people, and I think if you ask people about me, like, I don't go, oh my gosh, I played at North Carolina, like, how cool am I? Like, that was just my life at the time. I just inserted myself into it. But I look back and I go, wow, that was rare to be able to experience that type of leadership under that immense pressure, to have success, to have failure, and to take that into adult life. Like, how formative that was for me. I feel incredibly lucky because I was never comfortable there. Never. Even my senior year, I loved North Carolina. Like, I had so many great memories, but I was never comfortable, but I kind of liked it. My senior year, my back was hurt, and they finally said, Kacey, we're not going to train you during the week, but you're going to play on the weekends. And I was like, no. Because everyone's going to think that I'm milking it. Like, I don't want that. And they're like, you've had 3 years of proving that, like, you will do everything it takes to be successful here. So we just want to maintain you and make sure you don't get hurt. And I still wasn't comfortable. I was like, no, 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 no. And I was a senior. I played 90 minutes every game for the previous 2.5 years. And I still felt uncomfortable. I think because I had such a respect for the program as well, but also I just always felt that there could be someone to take my place and I was going to have to continue to work. And that's definitely a part of my personality to this day that has come from that time. But I'm thankful for that. I don't often get complacent, and I think that's a big part of it.
And to have that in your 20s and to be surrounded by people of a similar ambition level who push you and you can't get comfortable. It's such a rare gift.
It is.
Yeah. So you play 4 years at Carolina. You have numerous accolades. You win another national championship for them. And then you are also transitioning into the senior national team. And this is the glory years of U.S. women's soccer, right?
Find a way.